Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the Breakthrough 2020 webinar series brought to you by the Centro Institute. My name is Ryan Manchi. I lead the Centro Institute, and I am your host for today. A quick word about who we are. Centro is a provider of software and services for digital advertisers. Our technology is designed to boost media, team, and business performance by enabling advertisers to plan, buy, and analyze campaigns, all on a centralized and collaborative system that we call Basis. We have an amazing team of more than 750 media specialists, programmatic prodigies, operations wizards, account leaders, and all-around digital experts working across 44 offices who provide our clients with raving fan service at every stage of any campaign. Please note that a recording of this webinar and the slides that will be presented will be shared with you, and we will have some time for questions at the end. So while most of our webinars feature Centro subject matter experts sharing our take on new innovations in the space, we are flipping the script with Breakthrough 2020 series, featuring leaders of Centro's clients on how they are breaking through 2020, working to transform in an evolving industry. Today, we're talking about how nearly every business and industry has changed and how one company has actually been at the forefront of digital transformation, has actually benefited so much from that change. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have to adapt. So I'm excited to listen and learn, and I'm happy that you joined us. Our special guest today sharing her expertise and insights is Mary Ellen Dugan, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at WP Engine, where she is responsible for leading all global marketing activities ranging from brand and product marketing, partner enablement, to demand generation, corporate communications, integrated marketing efforts. She spent the last 20 plus years working in strategic marketing, brand building, business development, and advertising at companies like Indeed.com, Dell, Landor Associates, and Damon, as well as serving on the board at Susan G. Komen Austin, which is awesome. Mary Ellen, thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It is great to be with you all in this virtual setting. I think webinars, we're going to have to change the name of webinars because it's just another virtual experience for us. So love to be a part of the breakthrough moment for digital. So I'm going to hopefully in the next 15 or 20 minutes give you some data that we're seeing and just some real live examples of how digital and the digital experience is changing, and then tell you a little bit about how we have pivoted as well as WP Engine. So Ryan's going to be my master of ceremonies with the slides. So I think the next slide is actually, instead of the headshot, this is a live shot, so I must talk a lot because I'm either laughing or smiling at this shot. So been at WP Engine about 4 years, and yeah, all things marketing kind of fall under that, my purview. So I guess the next slide, probably many of you on the phone might not know who WP Engine is. And so I wanted to give you a little sense. So WP Engine is the world's largest WordPress digital experience platform. What does that mean? If you build on and build with WordPress, which is an open source CMS, we hope you choose us as your platform. So we've got about 900 employees. We are global. Our headquarters is in Austin, Texas. We've got 130,000 customers you can see across 150 different countries. How we talk, when we say digital experience, you might substitute that word for websites or how a company or brand is actually, what their digital footprint is. So we have a little over 1 million of those digital experience and websites on our platform, and we work with 5,000 agency partners. These are agency partners of all sizes, small, medium, large, conglomerate. They are digital, pure digital shops, as well as creative shops that happen to do campaign sites and digital experiences for product launches, et cetera. So if you build on and build with WordPress, again, we hope we can help bring your vision to life with our platform. So that's just a little bit about us. I think the next slide is what we're going to talk about. So truly, really witnessing an unprecedented evolution in digital. One of my favorite quotes is, and you can look this up, Eric Schmidt was interviewed in March and really said how fascinating it was in the 30 days of March, how quickly we had more innovation in technology and on the internet specifically than we did in the last 5+ years. So we all literally starting from about March 1, almost globally, while other global markets were experiencing the pandemic and COVID before us, really by March, the beginning of March, we were all in it and we were all in this digital phase. So what we like to say on the next slide is, we have moved to really where the digital experience is the human experience. We did some research about all different generations and how they use digital. And it was really Gen Z that for the last couple of years, we've been saying, well, the digital experience is the human experience. The youngest among us that were born after 1996 really kind of see digital and human experience as one of the same. What happened with COVID and the pandemic is actually we all kind of jumped into that category. So I want to I'm going to have Ryan move us ahead just to give you a couple examples, and then I'm going to unpack this for you a little bit. So you see a picture of the university. I think it's going to move to potentially a yoga studio, all of our retail and restaurants. So essentially what has happened is the website is now the front door for every business. So I often get asked, what happened to your business, WP Engine, once this hit in March? And I will have to be honest with you, we actually saw very strong months in March, April, May, and now moving into June. And what we saw was an influx of brands, companies, and agencies on behalf of their clients really having to pivot so quickly. All of a sudden, the front door now became your digital experience. And you can't just be a company that is digitally minded. You have to think that you're actually a digital business. And that's really where this has changed so rapidly. And the human part of that is all these things are interacting. So when I said, hey, it's the digital experience is the human experience, we're all living that. All of a sudden, Zoom is not only our business interaction, but it's also that happy hour for our friends and family and relatives. And so for companies, they really have to think about, what if you can't come in my original front door, whether it's where I work or it's where I conduct business, and how has that changed? I want to give you 3 real live examples to talk about these front doors. If you're not from Texas, H-E-B is a very large grocery chain in retail here in Texas, headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. And so the title says really the new checkout line. This is from the month of March. They saw a 20x increase in traffic and orders, so that, the curbside. So I'm sure all of you, wherever you're calling in from, you have your grocery stores are allowing you to, place an order, and then you can, come and pick it up. And so it wasn't that H-E-B didn't already have this curbside service, or you could buy online and either you'll pick it up or Uber Eats or somebody will bring it to you. It was this enormous influx. So what does that mean? That means for H-E-B, it has changed, of course, the technology and the e-commerce and things of that nature, but also think about the impact of that to their supply chain and to their workforce. How do they move people around? What does the actual footprint in the store look like, in addition to now the front door is actually that web experience? So it is really that digital transformation is having a human impact to your local grocery store and for all of us each and every day. So a huge influx for traffic and orders. Again, the tech is going to be there, but also then what's going to be the long-term human change that's going to happen with the workforce, and really just what does that space even look like when more people are in the store, exactly, going forward. The next example is with Ryan's help. This is, I think it's not going to play, but obviously this is a student. And so this is an example of digital learning. And so I think all of us, I'm a parent. I've got a 15-year-old son. And so if you are a parent, you obviously are living this every single day, right? The digital learning. Literally, one day they're going in the front door of the school, and the next day they're in the front door of your house learning. So we often talk a lot about what was that one-way learning where the teacher was trying to give information and educate. And that is one gigantic thing that changed with digital learning. But the other thing was, how do you actually engage your students? And so this example is really how Stanford actually does a weekend online. Well, they did it online, but originally they had prospective students come and visit the Stanford University. And so you'd go and you'd meet other students. And so what they typically found was this wasn't mandatory to come. However, because it went online, they actually got 50% more of their students to come to it. The challenges then become, how do you take what was this really human and interactive, and I got to talk to people one-on-one, and I got to look at all the clubs, and how do you make that a really engaging experience when everybody is looking at their computer and it's digital? This isn't just a U.S. phenomenon. We work with the Western Sydney University in Australia. They did something similar to this of how do we engage students. So the reason I use this example is we always talk about digital learning, and digital learning now, the big question is it going to change going forward? And how do we have that really interactive human experience when it's all digital? So a real huge change of what we're seeing from universities, and this goes all the way down to grade school and high school, and how our learning facility is going to really change that. The next example, I think, is really what I talk about is a celebration. So if you don't know what the Webbies are, the Webby Awards are actually a award show that that celebrates the best of the internet. And so they usually have this big event in New York City in May, and everybody, if you won an award, you come. And it's a huge honor, but also you could get your award from the likes of Miley Cyrus, or you can get your award presented to you from Michelle Obama. These are this was talent that they had who was going to come and actually hand out some of the awards. So they had to pivot very quickly. And so what they did, they actually made this online. It was a virtual experience. They saw an enormous amount of people come in that day, and then the longer tail of looking at the awards. They had always had a website and digital experience that showcased the award winners. Now what they were looking at doing, how do we actually make this engaging with the talent, the people that we've asked to come be presenters? And also, if you won an award, how do we make it feel really celebratory? So I think in those three examples with HEB, what is the human element of this digital that's going to change when we go e-commerce? With the university example, certainly there's nothing more human than teaching somebody and engaging somebody in a topic and trying to make them excited about learning. And then for this award show, nothing more human than actually celebrating awards and feeling like you are being honored. Just three examples of when we say that digital experience is a human experience. This is going to be a huge challenge for us. This is a great data point that we've seen since, this is from the New York Times. And so what we were curious about were, what is the difference between websites and apps? And so what you see here in this, the website is more important than ever. You see, a huge influx. Apps are, essentially flat, staying about the same. What we look at that is great brands are able to use their owned media, websites, digital experiences, where they can change the content really quickly. Everybody is being entertained online now, as well as getting information. So when you own your own property, you're able to change it as much as you want. You're also then able to advertise and bring people to that new experience. And so that's kind of a shift, and it's actually a spike in the website. The next thing that we're seeing is really a change in consumer spending. So again, another service is from Earnest Research. We'll send out this information. If you look at what was happening prior to March, the lines of online sales and in-store, yes, there were some gaps there, but they were much more closely aligned. Not surprising, what you're seeing after March is the huge influx of the online sales, but the valleys and the pivots are kind of matching each other. So that's kind of an interesting, but probably not shocking data point. The next chart actually talks about retail versus overall digital spending. So I want to call your attention to the left-hand side or right-hand side of the screen, however that works. During the pandemic, retail only. So you did see e-commerce. This is again back in March, e-commerce and card present. So in the store, yes, there was a distance. but not as drastic. So then you see e-commerce has taken off and up to the right. So this is retail only, where you would expect typical, I'm shopping for clothes, I'm shopping for groceries, etc. What we're finding really interesting, and nobody has a crystal ball, so we'll all see what's going to happen. Look at what happened across all spending categories. So it seems logical that you would think retail went big, e-commerce, but all spending categories, which is the blue line, is actually continuing to trend upward. So I know you all have had friends or colleagues, or you're hearing stories about people that bought a home online, or certainly a car, things that we wouldn't typically think about as retail per se, but actually have to have an e-commerce component. So one of the things that we're really interested in tracking across our 130,000 customers is, does everybody have to have this sense of e-commerce? Not every company is like this, but you can even go back to the yoga studio, which was a picture way back when, or a sample. If I can't go into the studio to do yoga, I may actually want to have e-commerce where I can offer training courses. And I've never actually thought about that. That really wasn't how I was set up. My website or my destination was really designed to be what classes and what hours they were going to be. And now, how do I do video and learning and this whole dynamic? So it'll be really interesting for all of us to look at the all spending categories. And then as a marketer, I'm looking about, well, what is that going to mean for the talent that I need within the marketing organization? If, I don't always have all e-commerce experts across every different brand. And so it just starts us thinking down this path of what is the pandemic, what is that lasting legacy going to be? The next slide is really, I'm going to pivot to kind of what has WP Engine done as a company, and kind of what are some of the learnings that we've had just over the last 3 months. Sometimes I had an email from a colleague and said, wow, I've been at home for 4 months. And I was like, in dog years, I think we all feel like it's like 5 or 10 years. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we've adapted at WP Engine. So the first one is really, the slide I think says WP Engine Radio. And so one of the things that, even though we're a digital experience company, if you will, I really think we went home on March 13th. I remember it was Friday the 13th. And a couple of things that we learned is, how do you take an organization that was, many of us came in that front door on a regular basis, and now our front door is our laptop. So while we had always had DJs who spun music at some of our all-hand events or our town hall, what we actually did, we went across and we have 4 amazing DJs, if you will, and each at lunch, Monday through Thursday, we actually have a different employee that's actually spinning music, and they all have different genres, and so it's always great to tune in. That has galvanized the organization as far as feeling that they're humanly connected, whether they love that music or they'll critique that music. So little things of how do you actually make people feel that you can separate that Zoom call, we use Zoom, each and every day, to new and fresh things. So one of the things we did was this radio, and also, and it's been a huge, huge success for us. And so trying to think of interactive ways to have your employees there. The second one, and this is, central call. And so one of the questions that we talk about is, I get from Ryan and others of, are you continuing your advertising? What's your paid media investment? And I would tell you that we actually leaned in during this time. We were lucky to be in an industry that was strong, as I said, over the last couple of months. And we actually wanted to make sure that we were continuing to have our paid media advertising investment. Now, like many of you out there, we did see our cost per click go down. We saw great influx of traffic into our site and our different properties. But what I want to talk about is, while we continued, we did do a slight pivot on the types of advertising we did. And some of that was to really make sure everybody's at home. We really dug into our product advertising and making sure that value message was out there. We really moved into what are the things and the searching, looking at the search data that our customers and prospects are searching out either organically or and through our page, and really looked at, and many of those things were product led and value proposition. So while we continued our advertising, we really wanted to make sure that it was about how do we look at that interest and consideration of some of the things that we have and help educate people. So the next slide, I think, is somewhat of a conversation of that. So starting in January, we had made a company-wide initiative to be constantly releasing new products and iterations. So, 2.0, et cetera, of some of our different products. So we had made a goal to try to do, 2 a month if we could. And actually, when we got to March, what some of our data showed us and what we were hearing from customers was, hey, I am going through this digital either transformation or I'm having to spin up a new project for my client. And there were a lot of questions around the different products and offerings within our platform because our clients were being asked and being pushed by either their internal, chief technology officer, or if you're an agency, you're being pushed by your clients. So what we found was we really put the gas on the pedal to our product releases. You can see we've had 14 since January, but more than 60% of those, 70% have come from March onward. So we really doubled down on product, and that's where we also looked at some of our paid media to make sure that we were getting that message out about these new offerings. And then this actually went all across our entire organization. How do we make sure our sales is enabled? How do we make sure our CX and et cetera? We had a summit also ironically called Breakthrough. So part of your seminar here, Ryan. And so this was planned to be in Austin. It was last week, June 11th. And so we made the decision very quickly to pivot. And I'll give you some of the stats here. We had a 5x increase in the RSVPs of people attending the summit because we went online versus a live event. We also did shift from a paid event to a free event. We quickly said, how do we do a virtual summit where I doubt people are going to want to stay online for 8 hours. We added in breaks. We added in our DJs came and did, spun records, if you will. That's an old phrase. I guess nobody has a record anymore. And we really looked at the content. The interesting data point here is while we did have that increase of both attendees as well as RSVPs, the people that attended, and then a week later, we have another 20% of attendees who have now watched it virtually. So it's really changed my mind on what is the role of virtual events. How are we going to think about even webinars going forward? And you can reach, although this was an Austin event, based in Austin, if you will, Central Time Zone, we had 8% of our pool was from EMEA, another 2% from Australia. Really strange time zones, but yet we were able to pull them in. So really, we'll be publishing a white paper on this of just the best practices. The next slide is just to give you a little sense, and it's a terrible picture of me, but you're going to get it. It's live. We ended up in the quick pivot. We sent to 20 of our speakers, we sent them microphones, we sent them cameras, we sent them backdrops. That's me, I guess, being a cheerleader. So that every speaker, even though we were virtual and recording things and going live, it would feel, in the hope, that it was one event that you were still coming to. So this was a huge pivot of how do we get microphones, and the prep work behind doing a virtual summit versus a live summit, I will be honest with you, was greater than I think we even expected. But I think the rewards in the long term will reap that. But if you're going to go into a virtual event, I would say the technology and the production, even though it's virtual, is greater than certainly we all expected. We also ran 7 chat rooms, so we were able to route people to each chat room. And the last thing that we did here was we took the money. We really committed to our communities during COVID. We asked our employees across the globe what were the charities they wanted to continue. Open Hearts is our social responsibility. We took all the dollars we lowered our sponsorship fee down to about $5,000 or $10,000 for sponsors to get in. We then matched that and added additional more, and we donated all the money we got from that. So from the summit, employee, and we gave it to our employees, or to the employee selected charities. So the last thing that I'll leave you with, I think, on the last slide is probably what it says. I think for all of us, when I say the digital experience is a human experience, we are all living this. I feel like I sit at my desk, and my social life and my professional life and my family life is right here at this chair. So that human component, we as marketers, as advertisers, have to be thinking that's not going to go away. We've all had a taste of this. So how do we make our digital experiences emotional, predictive, of huge value? How much time are we all spending online? And how is that going to feel different in the future? So that's kind of what we're seeing even more and more. And I'm happy in the last few minutes to answer any questions on that. I hope it's been helpful with some of the data, and we will send it out, or you can tweet at me or send me any comments as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. It was a lot to get through, but I feel like even inspirational at the end. I love the idea of thinking about and kind of reminding ourselves as marketers that the people that we're talking to, they're not just, clients or prospects or customers, that they're real people, and that we need to think about the technology, the tools that we've got available, and how we're smart about connecting with them and making sure that we're meeting them where they're at. And for many people, they're at home. So that's awesome. We're in our Q&A time. I think several of you have found the questions tab. Go ahead and plug in any questions that you have for Mary Ellen, and we'll see what we're able to get through. The first one, this is kind of, I think, building off of the event that you all had last week, the summit, which sounded like it was just an amazing success. But you talked a little bit about how you handled sponsorships and actually taking some of those dollars and reinvesting into some of the local nonprofit organizations. Did you have questions from those sponsors about renegotiating what their deal was with you and what they were going to get out of it, or how did you handle some of those conversations? And the kind of second part there is how you maybe how you're rethinking some of the events that WP Engine is sponsoring for the second half of this year and going into next year.
Yeah, great question, Ryan. And this actually does code to some of our paid media and our advertising budgets as well. So one of the things that we did lower the sponsorship fee as our sponsors, and that was because we weren't charging for the event and et cetera. But we also had a designated place for each of them. They had their own room within the virtual summit where they could actually do their product demos. We had interstitials throughout the entire event where they actually showed their ads, so they could show whatever they literally their ad, their video ads. We then also put paid media dollars to promoting all of them, as well as our, trying to get people to the summit. So that is one of those, pivots that we made in some of our paid media dollars. And I think what is both for our sponsors going forward and for ourselves, I think for a virtual event, my expectation is similar how I evaluate any sponsorship. We're going to give sponsorship dollars to be a part of an event, but we are then going to have to add equal dollars or maybe more to actually create this activation. It is crowded and busy out there. I'm going to demand that the events we're involved in, that they're promoting us with some of their paid dollars, and then we're going to have to create that unique digital experience that we're also advertising and putting forward. So it's not just the dollars that you put to sponsor. And so I think brands and WP Engine, the more that we can come to these sponsors and say, hey, we've got a great experience, here's how we are activating on your behalf, is fantastic. That's how we're going to win more sponsors. Selfishly, as a brand, I'm saying, boy, I got to add a lot more money to these things so that they break through and they feel unique and innovative. So that's what I think right now, most events online, many of them are free. And I think you're delivering a ton of content. When I look at 20% more people logged in after the event, that's a long tail of content. So we've got to get better at that. We can charge for events, but it's got to have a return on investment for everybody involved.
I love that. This next question about I think some of the data that you showed, and talking specifically about the, potential for the lasting impact of utilization of more websites versus app focus, the, online e-com type of purchase versus actual in-store. Thoughts on, I know you even mentioned like crystal ball, but like how much of a lasting impact of like actual change behavior long-term do you think that is going to be?
Yeah, I think, 2 years ago, we did this research again on these different generations, and every generation actually preferred to buy through the website versus an app. And so that was kind of interesting data. And you're seeing that more. I think that just owned media, and that's what I call your website, and you own it. You can put whatever you want on it. I think that people have gotten a taste of that. And so a website is going to have to be more predictive. Like, I give you information. I want to know when I come in. I don't want to have to meander through it. I want you to use targeted MarTech and retargeting tools that when I come back to you, I'm getting exactly what I need from that. So I think the predictive nature is going to increase, and people, their expectation is, I want to get exactly what I want when I'm there. I don't want to, it's not a brochure site. If you can make it predictive to me and engaging, we're going to continue to see the impact there of that. And it's not that other apps are going to go away or other buying marketplaces, but people tend to go there, and then they're also searching out that information. So I think that's going to continue. And entertainment, we all have a taste of entertainment online. So sites being much more entertaining and provocative are going to be there.
I like it. Well, cool. Well, we are at time. I wish we had another, 10 minutes, another hour for Q&A and more questions. But Mary Ellen, I so appreciate you joining us, sharing your insights, your expertise, and talking about all the great work that you and your team has been focused on over the last several months, and how you're looking forward to the coming months and year ahead. I love the positivity. I love the energy. So thank you so much. And for everyone that joined us, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope that you will join us next week for our third installment of our Breakthrough 2020 webinar series, where Jay Salyers he's the SVP of Miles Partnership. He's going to bring years of his client development experience to share an inside look at how the travel, tourism, and hospitality industries have adapted their messaging and offerings during the global pandemic. So again, thank you for all the great questions, your participation. When you log out, you will receive a survey, and I appreciate you giving us feedback on your experience. And as I mentioned, the slides presented, as well as a recording of the webinar, will be sent to you via email within the next 24 hours. So with that, stay healthy, stay positive. This concludes our presentation for today. I'm Ryan Manchi. This has been part 2 of the Breakthrough 2020 webinar series brought to you by the Centro Institute. We're glad you joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.